Hello, and welcome to Samuel's Fortress. I'm your host, Kirill, and today we will continue our discussion on the Slavic invasion of Macedonia and of the Balkan region. In the previous episode, I discussed how in the second half of the 6th century, the Slavic tribes from north of the Danube managed to invade the Byzantine Empire and establish significant Slavic settlements throughout the Balkan interior, specifically within the regions of modern-day Serbia, Macedonia, Bulgaria, etc. We ended that episode somewhere around the year 600, around the turn of the 7th century, and that's where we're going to be picking up from today. So in that previous episode, I mentioned how the reason why the Byzantines were not able to defend their Balkan territories from these Slavic invasions was due to the fact that the Byzantines were preoccupied on the eastern portions of their empire in wars with the Persians. Now, these wars with the Persians last well into the 7th century, up until around the year 629. And during these first 3 decades of the 7th century, while the Byzantines are preoccupied to the east, the Slavs managed to conquer even more Byzantine territory beyond the interior of the Balkans. Specifically, the Slavs managed to conquer the region of Thessaly, that is the portion of Greece just south of Aegean Macedonia. The Slavs make significant military incursions into Anatolia, the region of modern-day Turkey, and Slavic pirates managed to raid the Greek islands and establish significant Slavic control over the Aegean Sea. Now, after the Slavs managed to conquer all these additional territories, they're feeling pretty confident militarily, and they actually attempt numerous times to sack the city of Thessaloniki. I mentioned in the previous video how the cities of modern-day Skopje, Sofia, and Belgrade fell to the Slavs. However, Thessaloniki managed to hold out due to its strong fortifications. Now, again, the Slavs are feeling confident. They think they can breach the walls of Thessaloniki and attempt to do so numerous times, starting in the year 614, continuing to 615, 616, and so forth. The Slavs not only attempt to take the city by land, but they attempt to take it by sea. Again, the regions of Thrace, Macedonia, and Thessaly, the areas surrounding Thessaloniki are completely Slavic at this point, and the Aegean is controlled by Slavic pirates. So the Slavs attempt to do this pincer move and attack Thessaloniki from the land and from the sea, attempting to break the defenses of the city and conquer Thessaloniki. Now, the Slavs are not successful in doing so. Again, the walls of Thessaloniki are too well fortified, and frankly, the Slavs do not have the siege equipment necessary to breach the walls. The Slavs, like I mentioned in the previous video, are quite primitive militarily, and they don't have the technology, they don't have the necessary military equipment to break down the walls of Thessaloniki, given the scale of the fortifications. So Thessaloniki remains under Roman control. Now, the areas surrounding Thessaloniki fall 100%. There's a famous Roman quote that says that Thessaloniki was like a Roman island in a Slavic sea. So even the Romans themselves acknowledge the thorough conquest of the areas around the city. Nevertheless, even though the Slavs can't take the city of Thessaloniki, they don't end there. They keep pushing even further into the Greek interior. Like I mentioned previously, around the year 629, the Byzantine wars with the Persians end. However, this doesn't give the Byzantines an opportunity to refocus on the Balkan territories, because shortly after the peace is reached with the Persians in 629, the Arabs invade the Byzantine Empire, again, from the east. So even though they're done fighting the Persians, now they have to fight the Arabs. And therefore, the Byzantines, again, do not have the military strength to fight these Asiatic peoples on their eastern flank and attempt to retake the Balkans. So the Balkans, again, is undefended, and they keep pushing further into Greece, to the extent that the entire region of Greece falls to the Slavs. Not only the region of Thessaly, but the Slavs push all the way into the Peloponnesus. Now, the Peloponnesus, if you look at a map of Greece, is that landmass of Greece that looks like it's disconnected. It's kind of that southwestern portion of Greece that looks like it's disconnected from the mainland. It's not disconnected. There's an isthmus connecting the two regions of Greece. But nevertheless, this portion of Greece that contains the cities of Corinth and Sparta that we refer to as the Peloponnesus, even that portion falls to the Slavs. So you have an entire Slavic settlement of the entire area of Greece. Now, what happens to the Greek inhabitants of this territory when the Slavs arrive? Well, similar to the Romans in the interior of the Balkans, which we discussed last time, the Romans, the Greeks who live in the territory of Greece, who live in the Peloponnesus, they flee. They are not interested in being killed, raped, or enslaved by the Slavs. So they get out of Dodge, so to speak. They go to territories of the Byzantine Empire that are not conquered by the Slavic tribes. They flee to Sicily, they flee to southern Italy, they flee to the Greek islands, they go to Anatolia, portions of Anatolia that are not under Slavic control. They get out of the Slavic controlled regions and flee to safety. And based on this exodus of the Greek speaking peoples from the regions of Greece, the Slavs establish de facto control over these regions the same way they do in the Balkan interior. So Greece itself, the region of Greece, from the 7th century all the way until the 9th century, for 200 years, is under Slavic control. The Byzantines do not have the military forces necessary to reconquer Greece until the 9th century. However, during the 9th century, the Byzantines do manage to muster the military strength required to retake these regions of the empire. So, starting in the 9th century, once the Byzantine military lands in Greece and establishes control over this region, the first thing they do is they wage a demographic war against these Slavic tribes who occupy the area. Basically, what the Byzantines do is they take Greek-speaking peoples from around the empire and they settle them in Greece. Now, what is important to note here is that these Greek speakers who are brought back into Greece in the 9th century are not necessarily the Greek speakers who were there previously. The ones who were there previously are the original Greeks, the descendants of the ancient Hellenes, the original Greek inhabitants. These new Greek speakers who are brought in the 9th century are not those Greeks. These are simply people who speak Greek, who may be Anatolians, who may be from the Levant, who may be from Italy, who, again, are culturally Byzantine, who are culturally Greek, who are linguistically Greek, but are not the blood descendants, the genetic descendants, if you will, of the ancient Hellenes. And this is made clear by John Fine. Again, I'll be referencing John Fine's book, The Early Medieval Balkans. And I should mention, I don't think I really clarified who John Fine is in the last show. John Fine is a professor of medieval history at the University of Michigan. So he's not some random guy who wrote a book. He is a professor of medieval history at a prestigious American university. So again, this isn't just the rantings of some random person. So I'm going to quote here from John Fine in regards to this demographic change that occurs in the region of Greece starting in the 9th century with the new people being brought in. Now quoting John Fine, "It is evident that in this period a great deal of ethnic mixture between Slavs and Greeks occurred. Probably few pure-blooded Greeks, if such existed prior to the Slavic invasions, were left. A few centuries later, many Albanians migrated to these regions and further increased the ethnic mixtures. Thus, There is no reason to believe that the Greeks now are any pure-blooded than any other Balkan peoples. But of course, it is culture rather than bloodlines that matters. Though the resultant population was ethnically mixed, Greek language and Greek culture triumphed, and by the 10th century, most of the population of Greece, including that of the Peloponnesus, believed itself to be Greek and therefore can be considered so. So we see here, John Fine confirms that even though the continuity of Greek culture in that region is reestablished, there was Greek culture prior to the 7th century, and there is Greek culture from the 9th century forward. These are not the same Greeks. These are simply Greek speakers who were brought in order to counter the Slavic influence in the region. But these are not the same Greeks, and as John Fine says here, these new Greek-speaking Romans who were brought in were mixed with the Slavs. Throughout the centuries, they intermarried, they mixed with each other, and they create a new Greek ethnos, if you will. These are not the ancient Greeks, and this is further demonstrated by the German historian J.P. Vollmerayer in his 1830s History of the Peloponnesus. And J.P. Vollmerayer writes here in his work, quote, "The Hellenic race in Europe is completely exterminated. The physical beauty, the sublimity of spirit, the simplicity of customs, the artistic creativeness, the races, cities, villages, the splendor of columns and temples, even the name of the people itself, have disappeared from the Greek continent. A double layer of ruins and the mire of two new and different races cover the graves of the ancient Greeks. The immortal work of the spirit of Hellas and some ancient ruins on native Greek soil are now the only evidence of the fact that long ago there was a people such as the Hellenes, for not a single drop of pure Hellenic blood flows in the veins of the Christian population of modern Greece." So we see here J.P. Vollmerayer too establishes the fact that two new races now exist in Greece where the previous ancient Hellenes were. These two new races are the Slavs and the Roman-speaking Greeks, mainly from Anatolia, who were brought in, and now these two new races occupy the land that was once occupied by the ancient Hellenes. Now, I should note that this is where the modern antiquization theory of the modern Macedonians becomes not only of the modern Macedonians, but also of the modern Greek Macedonians becomes absurd. Because what we have now in the year 2020 is Slavic Macedonians arguing that they're the descendants of the ancient Macedonians, which is false. I've established in this video and the previous video and the video before that on the Gothic invasions that the Slavs are not the descendants of the ancient Hellenes. They are descendants of the Slavic tribes who came in the Middle Ages. So we can establish that the modern Macedonian Slavs are not the descendants of the ancient Macedonians, but we can also demonstrate here that the modern Greek Macedonians are also not the descendants of the ancient Macedonians. These are a new group of people who were brought in the 9th and 10th century to wage a demographic warfare against the Slavs, and these are simply Greek speakers who were brought into the region who are not the blood descendants of the ancient Macedonians. So again, this demonstrates the absurdity of the modern conflict between the Republic of North Macedonia and the Republic of Greece, both of whom are trying to establish that they are the descendants of the ancient Macedonians, although neither of them are the descendants of the ancient Macedonians. Those people are gone, they are extinct, they are no more. So that is the situation in the Balkans between Slavs and Greek speakers in this period in the 9th and the 10th century. In the next episode, I am going to further complicate the demographic issue in the Balkans, in Macedonia, with the arrival of the Bulgars. And so stay tuned, and next episode, we will talk about the arrival of the Bulgar tribes into the Balkans, into Macedonia. So until then, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.